What up, guys? Welcome to Harry Dating Combos. I'm your host, as always, Harry Wilmington. This is the show where you learn the ins and outs of how dating, mating, and attraction works, so that way you can get a better grip on reality of dating and get the women that you want. I'm your host, as always, Harry Wilmington. And on today's show, we're going to be actually reviewing a video from a psychologist who talks about this idea of being detached from various things as it pertains to relationships and what you're getting out of them, as well as not caring so much about the why or the reasoning behind why a woman that you're dating may make certain decisions. And so I thought it was very eye-opening because, well, I'll get into why that is in a second. Plus, I have another video I'm going to review from a woman that went on a interesting date with a guy, and I want to break down what she says happened so that way you guys can get a better understanding of what is and is not acceptable when you're going on a first date with a woman, okay? Plus, as always, guys, I will be happy to take your questions, and we have lots more to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into this episode of Harry Dating Combo. And of course, as always, this show is brought to you by my website, harrywilmington.com, where you can go to check out my ebooks, audiobooks, and various programs like the one right here. As always, this show is brought to you by Get Girls Academy, my exclusive program designed to help you attract, date, and keep the women you want. As a member, you'll gain access to proven strategies, insider tips, and bi-monthly group coaching sessions where we tackle your biggest questions live. Click the link in the description to learn more and join today. All right, so keep my lights on here. So those programs you can learn more about at harrywilmington.com. So let's start off with this video today. First of all, so there was an interesting video I saw on TikTok of a girl that had gone on a first date and all was seemingly going well. And then the guy did something and said something that kind of turned her off a bit. So let's go ahead and get into that video. It's this girl right here. We'll let her talk for a little bit and I'll break down things along the way.
I am here to tell you that the men are not okay. So I went on a date with this guy on Friday, and y'all, let me tell you about this date. So he got tickets to a comedy show, and he picked me up around 8 o'clock. Cool. We get to the comedy show. We're there about an hour early, and he says he's hungry, and we're right across the street from a taco spot. So he's like, let's go get tacos. I'm like, cool.
Okay, so let's break down what's happening so far, right? So he got tickets to this comedy show. I don't know if she mentioned the price yet, but they were $25 each. So far, we're at $50. And then this guy decides, hey, I'm going to pick her up and we're going to get there an hour before the show. Now, I am all for people being early to stuff. I think that's admirable if you're able to be early. But realistically, it shouldn't be that early. Like, unless you've already pre-planned out, hey, we're going to go to dinner and then a show. At this point, this woman had no idea that there would even be any kind of meal prior to, because that wasn't on the docket that he put forth. He put forth, we're going to a comedy show. So he would have been better to have taken her and gotten there like 20 minutes beforehand. That way they got just enough time to maybe stand in line as they're getting into the show and talk a little bit, but not so much that they have like all this extra time. You know, ideally, you're trying to get those first couple of dates where you have the activity you're doing and you're timing stuff to where you're doing mostly that activity. Either you're doing a dinner, so you're meeting at a certain time and that's when dinner starts, or in this case, comedy show. I always say it's great to do comedy shows, but like if the show started at 8, getting there at 7:30, 7:45 would have been better. So that way they could just go into the show. And then afterwards, if there's time and they've liked the vibe of what the comedy show did and they want to spend more time together, then they could like make some of that time go a bit after. I wouldn't do it before, but that's just me. It is what it is. So anyway, continuing on.
Now, mind you, to give you a little context, he bought the comedy show tickets. They were $25 each.
There you go.
So he paid for that. We get to the taco spot. I wasn't that hungry, so he ordered 3 tacos and I ordered 1.
And now, by the way, she said she wasn't that hungry. This is the result of poor planning on his part, because the reason she probably wasn't hungry is because he didn't suggest that dinner was going to be part of the date. And so she probably figured, okay, I'll just eat before I go. Because now all of a sudden this idea of food comes up and it's like, oh, like she would have prepared herself to have an appetite of some kind had he said in advance, hey, by the way, we'll probably get something to eat before the show. So be ready for that. But he didn't do that. He was a bad planner.
Because I wasn't very hungry. So we get the tacos and we sit down at the table, and we're just chatting, just talking, whatever. And he has 2 cups in his hands that the cashier had given him. And he's like, oh, let's go get some drinks. Let's go get our drinks. And I'm like, oh, okay, do you actually mind just grabbing me a water? And y'all, after I asked him if he could grab me a water, his face completely changed. His energy completely changed. And I said to him, I was like, are you okay? Like, is something wrong? Like, what's happening here? And he puts the cups, like he pushes the cups towards me. And he goes, why don't you go get us some water?
Oh! All right, so to recap what just happened there, right? So basically, when you pay for the meal, because I didn't catch this the first time, but like the cashier gave him 2 cups. And so my next move, if I got 2 cups, would have just been like walking over to the fountain and saying, hey, what do you want to drink? Getting the drink, it'd be done. But that's not what happened. What happened is they got the cups, and then keep in mind, he said, hey, let's get some drinks. So he's thinking, oh, great. But he's already holding the 2 cups. It'd be different if like they both sat down, he put the cups down, and then he was like, oh, and then she was like, oh, get me a drink. But he already had the 2 cups in his hand. So it would have been nothing to just be like when he said, hey, let's get some drinks, he was probably thinking we'll both go up and get drinks. At the point that she said, oh, she's probably already sitting down at this point. Hey, you're already up. You already got the cups. It's nothing for you to just go like this, boop, and go get drinks. So I don't think that's unreasonable, but clearly this guy is flipping out.
And again, I'm hella confused. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm just like, I mean, sure, I can go get some water, but I'm confused. Like, am I missing something? Like, I'm genuinely confused. And he goes, why don't both of us go get drinks? And I'm like, okay, like, I'm again genuinely confused.
Now, based on the tone she's giving, and again, she's the storyteller here, so I can only go off the tone that she's saying that he gave out, because he could have just said, why don't we both get drinks? But it's coming off as, why don't we both? But that's why it's important for you as a guy to understand that sometimes when you do deliveries of things to women in terms of verbal deliveries, you got to be mindful that how you're saying it and how they're taking it in could be 2 different things depending on the circumstance. In this case, in her head, it's very ridiculous that this guy's suddenly mad about me simply saying, hey, could you get both drinks since you're already up and you're already holding both cups, right? But yeah, he's freaking out. And so the way he's going about this and responding to this is not in the best way that could have been possible for this date.
I have no idea why this is happening, but we get up, we go get water, or we go get drinks, and we sit back down at the booth. So we get to the booth, and this man says, I have a question for you. Are you the kind of woman that is going to, serve your man? I said, what?
Just as a general blanket statement, guys, we know you're probably looking for women that are going to be, quote unquote, willing to serve you, i.e. do for you, do things like get your plate at a barbecue or get your drink or whatever. That is not a thing that you ever need to ask women. That is a thing that over time, as you get to know each other, you need to start observing about her. Because here's the thing, a woman on date 1, if you ask her, hey, are you the type of person that's going to serve your man? The answer could technically be yes, but in terms of you specifically, she doesn't actually know you enough yet to know feelings-wise if you would ever even get to that phase. And so when you ask early on, it's going to feel pretentious, and it's going to feel like you're the kind of guy that's just trying to control women. Because the difference between she loves you so much that she can't help but want to do things for you, and you saying, well, you got to be the kind of woman that serves her man, because that is going to seem like a direct order. And women have to build up to that. Women have to build up to feeling like they want to do that. If you tell them on date 1, well, I need a girl that's going to do that, you're probably going to lose that girl. And it's going to be all some dumb stuff that you said that you shouldn't have said in the first place. Continuing on.
He said, are you the kind of woman that caters to your man? Is that something that you do? And I said to him, why are you asking me this question? I'm confused. Why are you asking me this question?
Yeah, again, she's confused because she's just like, so, and also let's pan out the date, right? So he invites her out to a comedy club. And keep in mind, this is why I tell you guys are in charge of how this first date goes, right? So he's the one that decided we're going to go to a comedy club. He's the one that decided to pay $25 a pop for tickets to this club. And then he's the one, without her knowledge, it was like, hey, I'm going to want to get some food. We should go, you should come along with me, right? So she at no time asked him to spend all this money. He decided of his own accord that he wanted to spend the money on the comedy club, and he wanted to spend the money on the food, and he wanted to spend the money on the drinks. That's all stuff he did. But this is why women are sometimes like very much off guard, or on guard rather, for guys that are trying to spend too much money on them in the beginning, because if they don't get their way in certain areas, then they get that pushback and they start trying to fight women. And so in this case, because she was simply like, hey, you're already up, you could go get the drinks, he decides to throw a hissy fit, and then he wants to bring up, well, I spent this money on you, and I paid for this, and I picked you up here, and this is that. And that's not what women are wanting to deal with on a first date. They want to deal with a guy that understands that it's about the vibe being created, it's about having a good time together. And let's be real, guys, on that first date, you are on some level you're trying to show your authentic self, and you're trying to also be respectful and trying to impress her. So in this case, he decided to take her to the taco shop. He decided to pay for all this stuff. He should continue with that through line of also, hey, I've already got the cups. What do you want to drink? Or when they got the cups, he should have just handed her the cup and said, hey, here's your cup. Let's go get drinks. He didn't do that. So now he's throwing a hissy fit over something that he had complete control over. But because he didn't do the order of the date the right way, this is the outcome.
Did I miss something? And then he goes, well, I'm treating you to the state, like I bought us the comedy show tickets, I paid for the tacos. And again, mind you, y'all, he got 3 tacos and I got 1. He said, I paid for the tacos, I'm treating you, and it just feels like you haven't really contributed anything to the state.
So this is a guy now, when she looks at him, this is a guy that was trying to use his money and trying to use all these things he was trying to do for her as a bargaining chip for affection and her doing all the things for him in return or whatnot, right? And that's what women don't want. They're agreeing to a date because on some level there's a level of attraction, and they're willing to go out and see what you're about and see if based on that first interaction with each other that is she going to want to do dates with you in the future. But when you come around and say like, well, keep on, they haven't even gotten to the comedy show yet. This is just, they got to the comedy show early. So he decided to take her for food. And now during the food thing, he's trying to bring up, well, I paid for this and I took this and blah, blah, blah. So now she gets to feel basically like a hooker. Like you basically bought me for the night. And so now the trade-off for that is if I don't get you a drink, even though you're already holding both cups, you're going to throw a hissy fit. And now you're going to throw on my face, well, I spent this money on you. You need to do what I say. That's what the feeling tone is that he's giving her. I don't think he's meaning to do that, but that's what's happening. And he's turning this into a bad time. All because he's probably learned some stuff. This guy also sounds like he was burnt by women in the past. He sounds like a guy that probably got taken advantage of by 1 or 2 women. And now he's extra on guard for like very early red flag warning signs of any kind that she's going to be the kind of woman that's going to use him. So, I'm going to throw out this test of you getting our drinks for us, and you're gonna if you don't do it, then I'm going to assume you're a woman that's going to use people. And that's not the agenda she had at all. She thought she was getting picked up for a nice comedy show, and instead picked her for the show, went to get some tacos first that she didn't even want, and now he's getting all butthurt because he took her to a taco shop that he didn't originally plan on and is mad that she won't go get the drinks. Like, I can see why women on some level start to get frustrated with dudes because we have, I think both genders have thoughts in their heads about how dates should go and what the other sex should or should not be doing. And he's thinking, well, I already paid for the drinks. She should just go get them. And again, based on how he set up the scenario, how would she know that? Let alone, how would she know he'd get this butthurt about it?
And he goes on to talk about how he was offended that I asked him to grab me a water. Y'all, I started seeing black. I started seeing black. I said, this is not real life. Y'all, when this man was done telling me what was in his heart and crashing out, I said, are you finished? And he said, yes. I picked up my purse and I walked out. I got an Uber and I went home.
And I said, good for her, because really, like, that's the kind of thing where the behavior that he was displaying, it wasn't respectable. It was putting a judgment on her as if she's already going to be this kind of girl. Again, based on his personal hurt, based on his projection, based on things he went through. He's looking at, I tried to get her to get us drinks after she sat down already, and then I'm going to get mad about that because I'm already feeling like I'm getting used. But secretly, he feels like he's getting used because he's thinking, I got to do all this stuff to impress her, and I want a return on my investment right away. So on that first date, he's already spent $50 on the tickets. He done spent another. Tacos are like in California, like $3 a taco. So we bought 4 tacos, like $12. So he spent $12 on tacos. And then keep in mind, she asked for water. She didn't even ask him for a drink that would actually cost anything. So he probably had his drink cup and then a water cup for her. All that, and also I think too, when he asked her, like, do you want to get food? She was probably thinking, oh crap, okay. Because women keep monetary prices in their heads also. So she's probably thinking, okay, he's already spent like a bunch of money on these comedy show tickets, and he's already spent money on these tacos. Like, I don't want to put him out of pocket, so I'm only going to order 1 taco. I won't order a drink because even if I am kind of thirsty, I don't want to have him being like, I spent extra money that, again, she didn't expect him to spend that extra money. He decided to spend the $50 on the show and then the extra $12 on tacos. So for him to get mad after all that at her for not being agreeing to get a drink when he was already holding the cups, this is where it gets insane. And guys, again, I understand that women can be awful and do bad things at times. This is not one of those cases, but this guy already has a narrative in his head that women are out to use him. And so that is the driving force behind these actions, that he's already preemptively trying to avoid hurt, and he's putting that on the next person who's simply there because she got invited out for a nice time. And so I stress this, I show this to you guys because I don't want you guys doing this to women. I don't want you guys going on dates, for one, asking women, so are you submissive to your man? And when you date a guy, are you going to do stuff for him? That is something, again, that you're going to find out during the course of asking her out and dating her. You don't need to ask that question because I can assure you, you're thinking, if I ask a logical question, a woman's going to give me a logical yes or no answer. That's not how dating works for them. How it works is, as you show up more consistently, they feel more attached to you, and then they feel like doing more stuff for you. And so that's not something you can ask of a woman on date 1 when she doesn't know you enough to have built up those feelings, okay? And also, guys, you are in control of planning those first dates. If you don't want to spend $50, $60, $70, $100, then don't do it. Don't plan dates that for you are so pricey or out of your budget that you're going to be mad at her if she doesn't go home with you, if she doesn't kiss you, if she doesn't compliment you, if she doesn't get drinks for you. Like, you need to also even the playing field here, right? She's only going to typically give so much of herself on that first date in terms of physicalities and hugs and stuff like that. So don't assume on date 1, you got to spend all this money. And even if you do spend that money, spend it knowing that she does not owe you at the end of that date. Because I don't want you being upset because, well, I spent $80 on her and she wouldn't hug me at the car, or I spent, all this money on a show and she couldn't even do X, Y. Like, they're not entitled to do that. It's nice if they do. But again, this is why I tell you guys, even though you guys that are rich, that have a lot of money coming in, the worst mistake you're making is going on first date spending all this money. Like, because she knows and feels on some level that you're trying to bribe her for affection, and that's not where she wants to be. She doesn't want to feel like, here's what she doesn't want to feel. Like, let's say she doesn't want to hook up on the first date. She doesn't want to feel bad about saying that to you because you spent $200 and let her know about it. Like, that's not fair to her. That to her feels like a money manipulation. That feels like you're trying to treat her like a prostitute. So don't do that, and you won't have the troubles that this guy had. Just saying. Anyway, guys, so that was the first video. Now, I have a second video that's going to be the crux of the show, which is talking about being detached and not caring about her why. If you have any questions you'd like me to answer for you specifically that has nothing to do with this particular part of the show, you can ask your questions in the chat, and then I'll be happy to get to those questions at the end of this segment because I'm going to be reviewing this video. It is a 10-minute long video, but this guy has a lot of great points that he makes about this whole thing, and I want to make sure I get through it, all right? So with that said, let's talk about it. So I came across this video, and I thought it would be a good video to do because I have my own academy called the Get Girls Academy, and the goal of that academy is to allow you to see programs, audiobooks, ebooks, and stuff like that, and video courses that will help you get a better understanding of women and how to date them properly, how to attract them, and how to end up in relationships. And I've had several people now go through my program that have actually been successful in getting the girlfriend. But a lot of times when that happens, the question you may have is, A, what's next? And also, oh my God, I have a girlfriend. How do I not screw this up? And I think that I teach a lot of lessons on here about being detached to outcomes and not caring so much about the why behind why it is that women do things. And that's very easy to hear and try to do when you don't really have a girlfriend or a person in front of you that you really like. Like if you're just dating and you're like, yeah, I can follow Harry stuff and I can just haphazardly date whoever, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna just, if I don't like her, I'll date somebody else. It is what it is. Great. You're actually practicing detachment. But what happens when that girl comes along that just completely knocks your socks off and all you're thinking is, she's the best thing I've ever seen. She's probably the best woman I'll ever get. And I don't want to lose her. Well, what typically happens is we then start applying pressure to ourselves to have to be perfect. It can cause us to have anxiety. It can cause us to be nervous. It can cause us to really put a bigger magnifying glass on when we say or do certain things than is warranted. Like we could say something to a girl that's now our girlfriend and she gets mad at it or has a reaction to it that is not overly pleasing. And rather than just saying like, well, okay, she's bugged by that, but she'll get over it. We think, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. I said the worst thing ever. Oh my gosh, she's gonna leave me. What am I gonna do? And that can freak guys out. And so and honestly, that's part of why a lot of guys stay single for so long, because it's not the I can't get somebody, it's I don't think I can keep them around. And I don't know what my reaction is going to be if I lose them. And so the purpose of learning to be detached to outcomes is because you need to have the idea in your head that regardless of who comes along your pathway, at some point, everybody's going to leave you. And this guy's going to talk about this. This guy's name is Dr. Zeb. Oh, I forget his last name. Let me see if I get it on here because I want to make sure I get this right. Let's see. Dr. something. It's Dr. Zeb something. Well, anyway, the point is, so in this video, he talks about a client that he was dealing with that had been in a 4-year relationship and the girl just up and left and he couldn't understand why. And it was really like starting to break at him and take a toll on him and his health and stuff like that. And so I thought that the video he made on TikTok talking about the situation would be beneficial to you guys that maybe you're just getting into a relationship for the first time and you're not sure you're going to be able to hold this together. You're thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to find me out. It's a facade. I'm not really as confident what's going on. Or maybe like you're not a guy that, for example, has ever dealt with making a mistake in a relationship and then knowing how to do conflict resolution. And your thoughts just like, if I make any mistake, she's going to be mad and leave. Or if I don't hear from her for like 4 days, then the relationship is completely over. She doesn't like me anymore. And then what am I going to do? So we're going to go ahead and bring that video up to the stage and we will get started. Here we go.
A moment to share with you a solid conversation that I had with a new client. It's my hope that what I share with him is a help to you the way it was to him. He's 39 years old, no children, a farmer and a rancher. And came to me and said, Doc, I'm coming to you because I need you to help me process a breakup. My girlfriend and I, of 4 years, broke up. It was her decision. She decided that she no longer wanted to pursue things further. We had been having conversations about marriage and taking things to the next level, and completely out of the blue decided that she just didn't want to be in a relationship.
And now, by the way, guys, he's talking about out of the blue. And I know as guys, that can be very frustrating because we don't like having things unanswered. And so a woman could literally be all about you for like 2 or 3 years and then one day just be like, oh, I'm not feeling it. I'm out. And that is like one of the most frustrating things that as a dater, you may potentially face, but that doesn't mean that you won't face it. And when it happens, you got to be able to deal with it because she ain't gonna be there anymore. She ain't gonna care. And it's gonna be you sitting there crying about her while she's out living her life. What are you gonna do when that happens?
I said, were you guys having any problems? How healthy was your relationship? He said, Doc, it was very healthy. We rarely argued or fussed with one another about anything. We were really good at solving problems together. He said, Doc, I'm completely blindsided. She even said to me that she'll always love me and I'll always have a special place in her heart and in her family's heart. Our families are very familiar with one another. And he said,
and by the way, this is very important, right? Because this is why I tell you guys also, you can't stick to the words that a woman says today and treat that as eternal gospel. She could say today, oh, I love you. I would never leave you. You'll always be a place in my heart. And then tomorrow want to dump you. And you're going to be sitting there thinking, but the thing she said yesterday, I always go, even in my long-term relationships, I go based on what women say on a day-to-day basis. I hope to God that if I'm with a woman today and she says, I think the world of you, Harry, I want to be with you, I want to be your wife at some point or whatever, I hope and pray that that's going to happen, but I don't put my faith in that having to happen. And I think that's the difference, is that if you keep yourself open to the idea that what's being done today could change tomorrow, then it's not to say it won't hurt tomorrow if she decides to leave. But if you keep that in your head as a realistic possibility, then it's less surprising when it happens, because it's kind of like when people say like, oh, you know, like when you see like these shows where these unalivers are in this small, quiet town and all the neighbors are like, I never thought he'd be a person to unalive somebody because he was all so calm and quiet. I always think to myself now, no, the quiet neighbor, they could do that stuff. The person down the street that gets straight A's, totally can do that. The United Nations CEO person that ended up unaliving the head of that organization, he came from a wealthy family. He had the kind of backdrop that we would never think we're all capable. So don't think that women can't leave you. But again, I don't say that to make you scared. I give that to you as a realistic possibility. That way your whole world won't be rocked when it actually happens.
Said, Doc, I'm just confused. If I'm being honest with you, I'm just having a hard time fighting the other thoughts that keep coming to mind. I said, what kind of thoughts? He said, well, I'm really processing this. Like maybe something's wrong with me, or I've had several thoughts of maybe there's somebody else, and maybe she's seeing somebody else and she doesn't just have the guts or the honesty to tell me. Maybe I'm the problem. He said, I'm just having all of these thoughts and I can't control them. And it's driving me crazy because I cannot figure out why. Why?
Right there. So he's going through his head and trying to think of 1,000 different scenarios that could lead him to the actual reason as to why she did this. And you know why we do that as guys? Because we're hoping if we find, this is the subconscious part, right? If we're able to find the reason why she left, then maybe we can fix it. As guys, we are fixers. We are eternally searching for solutions to our problems. That's why if we have a problem in life, we sit there and ruminate until we come up with a solution, whether it's trying to fix a thing or trying to put together something else or trying to solve a problem, or, you know, playing a video game we can't figure out. So we sleep overnight, hoping in the morning we'll have a solution. Like that's what we do. Our brains cannot fathom not having an answer to something that would allow us to then fix the problem if in fact we can find a way to fix it. Okay. And so again, that's another one of those things that he's going to talk about as we go on.
Can a person who loves you just decide to walk away? Why can a person who loves you decide all of a sudden that they don't want to love you anymore? Why? I said, I think this is a good time to interject. I said, I want to talk to you about the danger of the word why, because understanding is a spiritual matter. He started to get upset and cry actually on the call a little bit. And I gave him a moment. I said, sir, do you understand why understanding is a spiritual matter? He said, I'm not 100% sure. I said, because understanding involves faith, and faith involves finding peace with things that don't make sense.
Exactly. That's the hard part. That is going to be honestly one of the bigger hurdles for you as a person that starts to get into relationships, because I'll be real. Part of the journey, at least for me, of getting into relationships was like this. It started off where I could get a couple of dates with the person and then they'd go away. And then I was able to make it to like the 2.5 month mark where it's close to being in a relationship. And then I'd ask about the relationship and it would fall apart. And then I got to where I could wait for it to get to like the 3 month mark where she would come to me and we'd be together. And then maybe a month in, I was doing the most and it'd go away. And then it got to where I get to a relationship and then I could stay in it. I'd know what to do. I wouldn't be doing the most, but they'd be doing the most. And then I'd be the one to break it off. So it's been a succession of like going from like not having a relationship to being able to have more and more relationships. And so in the process of that, as I was trying to get better at keeping women around, at the point where I'd actually get into a relationship and then they'd want to like not be in one anymore, I'd be like, what's going on? And it got frustrating to not understand the why. And sometimes I could pinpoint I was doing stuff, but sometimes I couldn't. And there were sometimes years where I couldn't figure it out. There was one girl in college, famously, that I had a crush on, and all of a sudden she didn't want to date me anymore. And I couldn't figure out for like 3 or 4 years, like what was going on. Kind of find out she was discovering her own sexuality. She was bi, and then she was dating a girl for like 4 or 5 years. So it's like, but imagine if thank God for Facebook, because like if without Facebook, I would have never known that. It would have just gone unknown, you know? But even then, it's like, I could have just had the thought of like, you know what, whatever the reason is, she seems to be happier with other people than me. So best of luck to her on her journey, you know? But coming to that space is hard because when we get with somebody that we connect with, we don't want to lose that connection. We want to do everything we can to keep it. And that's the thing. You trying to force a connection to stay typically is only going to push them away even more. But I digress.
With things that you can't see, with things that aren't logical. And I said, sir, you cannot apply logical principles to spiritual matters. This might be a spiritual matter. He started to sober up and said, that's very interesting. He said, I'm very familiar with their 5 areas of healing. He said, but I didn't look at the spiritual element of this that way. I said, this is why, if I'm being honest with you, so many people, and this is based on what I've seen in my space, so many people are having so many mental health challenges based off the word why.
And that's again, our brains are naturally designed to want to seek out answers. And so when we're not getting those answers, rather than just letting it go, we ruminate, we spend days on end, in the case of dating, trying to search their profile. Who is she possibly dating? Or she saw my story. What does that mean? Or she read the text that I sent and I saw the ... but then nothing happened. And we're just like, why? It's funny. I have a friend of mine that when I first moved to California, there would be times where like, he would tell me a story about something that happened at a party. Like he said, like, okay, so I was at this party and then things were going good. And all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, like the cops show up and we all bolted. And I'd be like, why did the cops show up? And his response would be like, I don't know. I don't ask questions. And I thought, but don't you want to know what happened? And his thought was like, the less I know, I can't go to court and say I saw some stuff because I don't know anything. And I think it was a very, very funny answer. But to me, it really put into my head this idea that it's perfectly fine to not have all the answers. It's perfectly fine to see a person that you care about suddenly want to go away and you sit there like, I don't know why they're leaving. Okay. And not adding any more brain power to it, because the time that I spend thinking about the why is time I could be getting over it and finding somebody new. But if I decide to spend my time thinking about it, it's like years and years and years, I think about the fact that like I've had relatives that have died in the past that if I was just, at this age thinking about relatives that died back when I was like 7 and 9 and 11, like, and still being like, oh, I still have trauma from this and that. I don't know why God took them. That would ruin my journey and that would allow me to have successes and move on to other things. And I think too many guys, they're limited in their thoughts about how many girls they can get. And so they allow themselves, at a detriment, mind you, to consistently think about women that are making these weird moves or saying these things to them or getting flaky on them and wondering why. You set up a date with somebody you met online that you seem to gel with and she doesn't show up. You want to know why. What happened to her? What's going on? How did I lose the conversation? And again, I had those same questions at one point. And then one day I was just like, but the time I'm spending trying to figure it out, I could be talking to another girl online. I could be going on another first date with somebody that wants to make out with me. I could be getting into relationships with women that aren't going to make me question why or why not they like me. Like, that is so much easier than what most guys do.
It is our natural human desire to want to have answers that's taking our anxiety and our sadness to a brand new level. You were never designed to understand everything that happens in your life. This affinity that we all have for needing to have answers and wanting to know why and needing to have an explanation and needing for things to make sense actually works against our ability to have mental and emotional clarity. And I said, sir, people are not going to understand that unless they have a spiritual foundation. I took it.
Now, by the way, as I know he's talking about a lot of spiritual stuff, so you don't have to necessarily be a spiritual person or religious person to get the undertone of what he's saying, which is that basically you having to understand something, it's not a have to. You just have to know that the other person, for whatever reason, is making the moves that they're making and that they have their own reasons that you may never know about. But at the end of the day, you have to worry about what's going to actually affect you in the moment versus the what could haves of the world.
Further, I said, the extent to which you're going to have peace in your life is going to be the extent to which you are able to separate your need to understand why from your ability to have peace.
Let's hear that again, right? He said you need to get rid of your need to have to understand in order to basically have more peace in your life. And that's so true because, again, while you're sitting there thinking about the what ifs or what happens or whys or whatever, like, how much turmoil is that bringing up in you? And then when you're going around to other people talking about, oh, she left me, I can't believe, we got to figure this out. How much turmoil are you now bringing to the lives of other people around you? Like, it only creates chaos the more you're trying to ponder about a why for a situation that you're not going to be able to control anyway. Like, yes, there are times where women will come back to you, but it is rarely going to be the result of you controlling the narrative. It's rarely going to be the result of you saying, I'm going to text her nonstop for 30 days until she talks to me again, or I'm going to try to, hit her up on Instagram and help figure out, can you please tell me what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And hey, I've had, family members that out of nowhere just said, I don't want to talk to the family anymore. And I think, objectively, my family's pretty great, but I don't know their experience. I don't know what they're going through. I don't know what experience they had in the family that would cause them to be like, I want to disassociate. Me trying to spend my time figuring out the why of that is not going to allow me to be like, but again, their journey is they want to do whatever, and I'm over here. So if they want to come and talk again, they can. It is what it is, but why focus on that if I can't control the narrative? Like, and we as humans, we desperately want control of everything we do. And especially with women, that's just not going to be possible. Like, you can do the best guesstimate of, if I do a certain thing or say a certain thing, she'll do this or do that or whatever. At the end of the day, though, we all have agency. And so you could be the absolute best guy that does every single thing right. It doesn't mean the woman that's with you is going to want to stay with you. It doesn't mean the things that you're presenting are things that she needs long term. It's just some things to consider.
I said, sir, you find peace in your life when you just get to a place where things don't have to make sense. You don't have to have an explanation. Things don't have to add up. The math doesn't have to math. You can absolutely embrace what occurs. You allow your logic and your understanding to go as far as it can go. And then when your understanding and logic has expired, you lean on an understanding that's greater than yours. And I said, sir, that's called your faith.
And again, not necessarily in a spiritual sense, but just understanding that sometimes, like you said, you can think about the ins and outs of, okay, what are some things I could have done better? Why did she do X, Y, and Z? But at some point, you got to let that stop. You got to be like, look, you know what? Here's what I do. For example, if I'm going through a breakup, I'll say, okay, you know what? I'm going to give myself 2 full solid weeks to just ruminate on this. I'm going to think about her. I'm going to be mad at her. I'm going to yell at her when she's not here. I'm going to be going through all the ins and outs of what I did and this and that. And then at the end of 2 weeks, that is the only amount of time I'm going to allow myself to ruminate on this situation before I start trying to move on. Because I think it's good as guys to get used to actually grieving relationships. Like, I'm not one of those guys that's like, don't ever grieve, just go back out there and start effing hoes and stuff. Like, that's not my MO, right? You need time to really sit down and actually feel the emotions of this person leaving you. But what I don't want is for you to be like a year from now, oh, my ex is still whatever. No. You gave yourself X amount of time to grieve, X amount of time to think about all the whys and what ifs, and then you stop. Because if you don't stop, that becomes a problem where you now become a detriment to yourself and your ability to move on.
He was like, wow. He said, I didn't look at it that way. I said, I want to go a little bit further. I said, do you love her? He started laughing and said, Doc, you got me over on the call crying and then have the audacity to ask me if I love her. Of course I love her. He said, that's a crazy question. I said, sir, you don't love her. He stopped smiling and laughing and looked at me, confused.
Oh, we're about to get some real stuff here, guys. Check this out.
I said, sir, you don't love her. You're attached to her. He paused. He put his head down. He began to sob and cry. One of the first times, or one of the few times I've seen conversations with men where they literally men alone, just really broke down and lost it. And
by the way, for you women that are watching this is what we're talking about. We're like, men do have emotions. It takes a lot oftentimes for a man to want to break down. But even then, it's not that it's easier, but for men, it's a more comforting area to cry in front of another guy than it will ever be in front of most women, because we've learned that women don't take our tears well, and that they either make it about themselves or we get clowned for being emotional. So guys that are watching this, it's not that you can't be emotional, but just know where to be emotional. Sad to say.
Sobbed for about 2 or 3 minutes, and I allowed him. I know what it's like to be hurt and to go through pain like that. And once he began to come to his senses, I said, sir, I want to explain 3 things that happen in our lives when we are attached. I said, number 1, when we're attached, we find ourselves in a position where we feel like we can't live without people. I said, have you ever said or made the statement, I feel like I can't live without her? He said, I have. I said, do you smoke? He said, I don't. I said, do you know any smokers? He said, I do. I said, have you ever been around smokers? He said, I have. I said, when a person smokes and blows the smoke in the air, how long does the smoke stay? He said, not long, a few seconds. He said, it disappears, correct? I said, our life and the things that come into our life operate much like that smoke. That vapor, those vapors, that smoke comes, but it does not come to stay. It comes to pass. I said, sir, people who are healthily connected to people realize that people and even experiences in our lives, they don't always come to stay. Sometimes they come to pass.
That's so true. And that's for everything, your everything from your children to your cousins, your favorite aunts, your uncles, your grandma, your grandpas, the girls you dated back in the day, the girls you're going to date in the future, regardless of how long they stay, whether it's like for 6 months, whether it's a year, whether it's 40 or 50 years, inevitably everything is going to turn to dust, even the people that you care about. And the question is, when that happens, will the mantra of I can't live without them actually be true if you're still alive? Chances are it's probably not going to be. So you living that lie for women that you're dating is kind of unwarranted, isn't it? Because if your brother or sister die tomorrow, you're going to still be here. You might feel like a part of you died, but you'll still actually be breathing and walking around, right? And so that girl that you had a crush on, or that girl that you actually got into a relationship with, and it lasted all of like a week before she said, I don't want to do this anymore. And you're like, oh my God, I'm devastated. Or that woman that was married for you for 20 years and then decided I'm out the door. The next day you get up, you're still standing. So you try to live by the mantra of, oh, I can't live without this person. It's a lie. It's a falsehood. But ideally, you'll take from that if you can get up the next day, you can also survive the next day. You can also eventually get over those people that you wanted around long term, but inevitably decided to leave.
And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter who the person is. I said, this is how I ground people who are grieving, say, the loss of a loved one, maybe through death, through divorce, to recognize that the extent to which you're going to be able to move beyond your attachment to them is going to be the extent to which you realize, again, another spiritual principle, that everything that comes in our life does not come to stay. It comes to pass. I said, sir, you all could have been married 40 years. Eventually, you're going to what? He said, I know where this is going. We're going to die. I said, exactly. I said, even good things that happen in your life do not come to stay.
And that's important too, because, there are times, for example, where I will be like, this is the Christmas season, right? So like last week, I went to a friend's house and him and his wife held a gathering. It was like 40, 50 people. And some of these people I've known for like 10, 15, 20 years and stuff, right? And there are times in my life where I'll be at a celebration of some kind, or just some kind of like activity, something simple like I have friends at my place gather around to watch Christmas movies and stuff like that. And I'll sit there and pause and just take it in and be like, this moment is nice and it's not going to last forever. So let me just sit here and just enjoy this moment, because I know that things pass quickly. Famously, my dad died when I was 9 years old. I think since the age of 9, I've had the understanding that things I love could go away, but I've also survived that incident. And so I know that, he said, these two things shall pass, but eventually you will move on. I've had friends that I was friends with for 10 or 15 years that suddenly decided, either they did some stuff to me or they thought I did some stuff to them, and boom, we're not friends anymore. I've dated women that I thought it was going to last a long time, and then a breakup happens. And it's like, you just learn over time, like, yeah, you learn to survive, but that doesn't mean that during the times when there are good times with these people or everybody that you care for is alive or whatever, that you don't take that in and enjoy that joy, because again, we're not set to be here forever, And so as you get a better understanding of that, even if you date a girl and say you date her for like a year and she wants to break up with you, ideally you'll be able to say, we had some good times. Like every girl that I've broken up with, I can look back and say objectively, we had a lot of great times, a lot of laughs, a lot of vacations, a lot of fun memories, and it didn't work out. It was what it was, but I know that I can still be happy for those good times and also be like, and now it's also time to move on. Those two things can live together, but you can't be the person that's like, it didn't work out and I'm going to just be because again, they're moving on. You're the one that's sitting there deciding to stay in your bubble of sadness and stuff like that. Okay. But this also helps in terms of when you get a girlfriend for the first time and, you're having conversations with her, you're taking her out on activities, and inevitably there's going to be mishaps. There's going to be miscommunications. And what dudes do is think, oh my God, I can't mess up ever, versus saying, you know what, inevitably I'm going to mess up. And when it happens, I'm going to have to deal with it, but I'm going to try to treat it as much of not a big deal as possible, because I know that ultimately if she wants to stay, she'll stay. If she wants to go, she'll go. But what most dudes do is they go into any kind of mishap or thing like, this is the worst thing ever. I'm anxious and nervous now. I don't know how to fix this. I can't control the narrative. Oh my God, what's going on? That energy actually makes women want to leave a lot faster, because when you look like you're too invested and that you care too much, it's not bad to care about her, but it's bad to care so much about your interaction with her that you're taking things to a massive level, and it's causing you to want to control a narrative and control her to react to you certain ways, or to try to, apologize for things that don't need apologizing because you're thinking doing that's going to make her want to stay with you and all this other stuff. Like, women can read that energy and they do not like it. And it starts to make them second guess if they should have gotten with you in the first place. That's why I tell guys that ultimately you are the one that she's looking for to lead this relationship. You're the one that's in control of your projections and what you're putting out there. If the energy you put out there when you make a mistake, for example, is, oh my God, I made a mistake, you should totally care about this. Now she's got to care about it. Now she's got to make it a big deal because you made it a big deal because you were so worried about being able to keep her and hold on to her, and you got attached too much to where you're not having an outsider's perspective of what's actually going on and being able to keep your cool.
Everything comes to pass. And that's a spiritual principle, sir. That's not a principle that your logic is going to be able to wrap its mind around, which is why your emotions are telling your brain, this is a problem, this is a problem. When your brain needs to be telling your emotions how to feel. That while times were great with her, maybe, just maybe, like that smoke in the air, she didn't come to stay, she came to pass.
And that's totally fine. Like, there are, along the journey of you getting better with women, some women, you're going to knock it out of the park after 3 months. She's going to want to be the girlfriend. It's going to be great. And you're thinking, yes, I finally did it. This is going to be long term. The first girl I ever got in a relationship with, it was when I was 15. It was for 2 weeks. And then she had to go. She was here for the summer. Then she went back home, right? And we never dated like that again. But when I got with her, I remember going back to our house, and me and my brother were talking, and he was like, oh my God, could she be the one? Could she be the one? And I'm like, what? And I'm logically thinking, well, I'm 15, so maybe not possibly. But I don't know, because there are people that meet when they're kids, whatever. It wasn't meant to be, right? So just understand, like, you could have the greatest intentions. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It might mean that this one that you're with, along the way, you learn some lessons, you have some good times, and then it just preps you for like the next one, and then the next one. And then eventually you meet that one. It's like, oh, this actually works out. Like, that's kind of the ebb and flow you need to look at. So don't think just because you figured out how to date now, the next girl that comes along is going to be your end all be all. More likely than not, she's not going to be. But that doesn't mean you can't have good times with her, and it doesn't mean you can't learn some stuff, and it doesn't mean that when it's all over that it was for naught, and that it wasn't worth going through to learn stuff for the next person.
He said, wow. I said, number 2. Second thing I want you to think about is that your feelings will always impact your perspective instead of the other way around. I said, and this is important because if we recognize that our feelings can control our perspective, we have to be careful of how we're connected to them. I said, sir, I want you to take your hand and put it in your face. He did like this. I said, no, I wanted you to put it on your face. He did it like this. I said, what can you see? He said, I can't see nothing. I said, I want you to turn your hand this way and put it on your face like this. He did it. I said, what can you see? He said, I can see more. I said, do you know why? He said, Doc, I'm lost. How? I said, because when the connection with the person we're with is always before us, it clouds what we can see around us. When the connection we have with people, the palm represents your connection, is outward, meaning we love people, but we love them with grace, loose grips. When it's outward, then we can see not only them, the connection we have with them, but we can see things around us a lot clearer.
And so this is a big reason why I try to teach you guys about being detached to women. Even in your relationships, you need to be some level of detached. And it's not about, I'm not saying don't care about her or think about what she needs or stuff like that, but I'm saying the detachment, it allows you in a sense to like look at your relationship as an outsider. Like, here's the relationship right here, but rather than you being in it all the time and being so close up that you can't see the totality of it, you're out here. And this is important because let's say she does say something that's disrespectful or something that's out of pocket. If you're too much in it, you're going to think, well, I got to be in this and she didn't mean it like that. And so I got to try to figure out how to make her happy, versus when you're outside of it, you can say objectively, that was some messed up crap that she said to me. I need to address it. And if she doesn't like it, then I don't need her in my sphere. And it allows you a level of emotional stability to whereby you can be totally lovey-dovey about her and at the same time be objectively looking at, but are the things that she's doing to me or saying to me respectful of me and my position and this relationship at large? Maybe it's not. Or maybe you're with somebody that's like, is treating you decently, but treating everybody around you bad. If your view is too close and you're too attached to her having to be the person, you're going to ignore all the red flags she's showing by treating other people badly because you're like, but no, she treats me great and you guys are just tripping this and that. Versus if you're detached, you could like go to a family function as much as you love her. Maybe you see her, tripping up the little cousins or saying something back to your mom. You could be outside of the sphere and say, objectively, I love her, but also she's tripping on family members. I need to address that. And so that's what the idea of being detached is about, because ultimately we want you to pick a woman that's going to be respectful of you and understand that you deserve respect and stuff like that. And so you need to be able to see if that's going on or if it's not going on. And what happens with guys that are too attached is they're just all about, this has to be the girl. You should never be in a position where the girl that is with you has to be the one. And I say that in a way of like, let's say you might even get engaged to a person, right? If you get engaged to a person and they start tripping up, a lot of guys will think, well, I've already proposed and we've already set up the wedding and we're already engaged, and so I can't do whatever. A person that was more attached would be like, you could still get kicked out. Like I've literally proposed to a girl before, and then maybe a year into it, there was some stuff that just didn't gel well with us collectively. And I just said, this isn't going to work. Like, I love you, but I don't want this behavior. You don't seem to like this about me, so I'm out. And again, at the time it sucked, but I was just like, but no, I'm not so attached to this person that this has to be my person. Because if they end up showing that they're a toxic person, or just we just realize in the course of dating that our paths just aren't going to align in a future sense, then I need to be able to say, oh, I got new info. It's not going to work. I got to get out. And so that's why being detached is such a good thing in the first place. It doesn't mean you love her less.
I said, sir, your feelings will impact your perspective. And the closer you are to this situation, the more skewed your perspective is going to be.
Keep that in mind too, guys. Yes, even though, they say guys don't have as much feelings as women, the reality is, yes, how you feel about this person is going to affect the ways in which you attach to them and the ways in which you see them. And that sometimes could be a negative, because you're going to blindly not see things about this person that you don't like and that aren't going to work long term, that are actually red flags, because you're so in love and enthused and you're like, oh, I got to make this work and it's got to be a thing. But it's because, the sex feels good, her kisses feel good, her hanging out with you feels good, the idea of you having a person with you feels good. And sometimes we take all those collective feelings and think, I can still make it work with a person that's showing toxicity, and you can't do that. Or this girl left me, but I'm still going to hold out for hope that she's going to come back to me because we're meant to be, because I felt all the things, and she's not feeling them anymore, and it's wondering why you're still stalking her Instagram page. Like, real talk.
About this relationship, I said, you got to flip your hand. I said, it's okay to love her, but recognize it's also okay to be able to see where you're walking and where you're going. He said, wow. I said, here's the third thing I want you to know about attachments. I said, when you're attached, you confuse unconditional love with control.
Oh!
And sir, the greatest form of love is letting go. I said, you're a rancher, right? Yeah. I said, have you ever been whitewater rafting? He said, I have. I said, what happens when you try to go against the flow of the current in the river? He said, we got problems, Doc. I said, what's going to happen? He said, probably you risk the boat turning over. I said, there's no probably to it. I said, you know as well as I do that if you go rafting, they tell you to row with the current and not against it. Because when you try to row against the current, you will risk turning the boat over. I said.
So this is also a great message. This is correlating with, the guy is fighting so hard now. Well, he's fighting all these feelings he's having about the girl that just left him after 4 years. And he's probably wanted to like do things or fight things or say things to try to get her back. But if the woman's going this way in terms of feelings and you're trying to run back this way, it's opposite. I have found there have been times when I've been able to win women back that either I previously dumped or they dumped me. But that has never been the result of me chasing them down, over texting them, over complimenting them, me trying to overextend, trying to do things for them, trying to logically explain to them why it is that we need to be together, while at the same time trying to figure out why they dumped me so I can rationally explain to them how that shouldn't be a thing. We should still be together. Like you're not going to get, when you're trying to fight her for feelings, you're going to lose. Versus I found the easiest way is to leave the person alone and give them time to think, and might take a month, might take a week, might take a year. But if you give them that time, I found that's the better way of eventually getting them back. Not that they always come back, but if they do come back, it's usually not the result of you doing, it's the result of, like you said, of letting go. Because you're basically showing that person, hey, you said you don't want me around, the best way I can love you right now is to respect what your wishes are and head over here. And over time, I found sometimes women will feel that and be like, wow, he really like let me go and let me like think to myself and be with myself. And I'm realizing like, man, that was so respectful. I actually missed that energy that he brought to my life. Maybe I was tripping. And that's a conclusion that women have to come to on their own. But this is also important because, again, there's going to be times just in a relationship that lasts, right? There's going to be times, especially in the beginning, like at the point that she actually becomes the girlfriend, right? There might be times where there's a miscommunication and she's like, I got to go silent for a few days. Or she just, she stopped texting for a couple of days. And most guys panic. Like, oh my gosh, she stopped texting me. She's not answering my message. She's going, what's going on? That is you trying to fight the current and trying to control the narrative. You're trying to control when she contacts you so you can have your anxiousness be at ease and not be so panicked. And what I've learned is that sometimes you just got to give women a few days to realize I was tripping. And you know what? This guy's trying to be the best guy possible. Oh my God, what am I doing? Right? And so, but that's going to happen sometimes. There's naturally going to be mishaps and occurrences and misunderstandings. And what I don't want you to do is be so attached to this girl that you start trying to fight and panic and all this other stuff in an attempt to be apologetic and say, oh my God, I'm so crazy. And I did this thing wrong. And this is whatever, that you end up actually pushing her away more because you're showing that you care too much about this having to work out. This thing of a relationship having to work out, it should not be a thing. Your only goal is to show up and do the best you possibly can. And her goal is to show up the best that she possibly can. And hopefully in the course of doing that, it works out. And there's going to be some bumps along the road. Even when there's bumps along the road, your goal, you reach out. Oh, I don't want to talk to you yet. Okay, cool. I'll be over here when you're ready. And you just kind of let it ride out because, again, all you can do is love the other person where they're at. And sometimes that might mean they need a bit of space or time to think about things or talk to their girlfriends about stuff before they come back to you. But yeah, you got to give that space. You thinking you're going to win her over by fighting her about it, it's not going to be a thing. And even if she does get back, she'll feel like she was coerced into it and probably still have some bitterness left as a result.
This is the problem that people have when they call love unconditional love and they think it is admirable. People think unconditional love is never letting go. The reality is the highest form and the greatest form of love is the ability to let go, because you become guilty of manipulation anytime you feel like you have the need to fully control a situation. We are guilty of being manipulators when we feel like we have to completely control even the people in our lives, their decisions, whether or not they want to stay or go. I said, and when you're in that place, you are confusing what you deem to be unconditional love with really control. I said, and sir, this is why you're attached. And that's why I question your love for her and I call it an attachment. I said, sir, I need you to repair this idea that you can't see life without them. I need you to change your perspective by being able to see more to life besides them. And I need you to understand that the best gift you can give people that you really love is being willing to let them go if they want to go.
And that's the part that I think guys also have a hard time out. Because here's the thing, like when I get into long-term relationships, I never give the impression that I can't live without the person. I never give the impression that if they want to have a day where they don't see me, or they want to have a few hours to themselves, or they want to talk for 3 hours on the phone with their girlfriend, that I'm going to be devastated, that I can't find other things to do, and that I will not be able to move on if they're not constantly paying me attention. When I get into disagreements with women, I'm able to sit down calmly and say, hey, let's talk about it. But I also understand there might be a time where they need to go away from it and think about some stuff. And I don't think to myself, they had to go away to think about some stuff. Oh my God, this relationship's over. I think to myself, all I can do is say my part and show up the best way that I can. And if doing that is not enough for that person, I hate to see him go. I will find somebody else. Now, to be fair, I've had a lot of years in the dating game, so I'm more comfortable with that. For those of you guys that are new, that are just coming into being able to either date for the first time or you're finally getting into a relationship for the first time, that is a foreign feeling that you're not used to. Like you're hearing me say, if you get into a fight with a woman or she disagrees with you or has some kind of outburst or whatever, that if you just leave her alone, she'll be fine. And that she's not going to punish you for not running after her, not punish you for not wanting to talk about it, and all this other stuff. Like I found that those things don't happen, but you haven't had that experience yet. And so you're probably listening to me like, but Harry, I haven't experienced that. What is it? Well, regardless of whether you're in a relationship or not, just we've all had the feeling of like having a person in our lives that try to force us to do a thing. I know, for example, as a teenager, at some point, your parents are probably trying to force you to go to a church service or hang out with certain friends or, leave a party when you didn't want to. And it's like, yeah, you know what that feels like to be feeling like you're being coerced into doing things you don't want to do. That same feeling that woman is now having if you're trying to, seemingly manipulate the situation. And so this is why, again, as you get more into dating, ideally it'll become more comfortable. For now, this is one of the things that you have to practice. Like if you're not used to it, you have to practice the idea that there's going to be times when in a relationship, you might not do all the things right. And a woman's going to think that you did something that maybe was upsetting to her. And you got to be like, objectively, I did nothing wrong. And so therefore she's having a little panic attack. I can't buy into that. Like I can be willing to talk to her about it, but I can't pay attention to the over emotion she's having because I don't want to lose her. Because sometimes, here's the thing, guys, sometimes women will have reactions to things that they said you did that aren't warranted, that they're having big feelings about something and it's not a thing that should even be a thing. And sometimes women will do that to test you. Other times they'll just do it because maybe they came from a situation where everybody's always doting on them and they learn the way to get attention is to cry about things or to bring things up that they make into a big deal. One, your job as a guy is to make big deals smaller. And also your job as the guy is to still be the leader of the relationship, meaning you don't buy into her emotions. Yes, she can have emotions and sometimes they're going to be warranted and you guys got to have conversations. But sometimes women, just being a bit more emotional, are going to have stronger reactions to things. And they're looking at you to see what your reaction is going to be. It's just kind of like, if you're playing with kids and sometimes like a kid will like fall down on the ground and they look up at the adults. If the adult's like, ha, that's so funny, great, Joe, good job. Then the kid's like, okay, yeah, okay, cool. Versus if the kid falls and you're like, oh my God, are you okay? Now the kid's like, oh, this is now a situation I need to panic about because this is actually dangerous. I'm crying. And I found women to be the same way. Women, I've been in relationships before where like women are bringing things to my attention. They're like, oh my God, because you did this thing and how blah, 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 blah. And I'll sit there and be like, okay, babe, so you're saying this thing happened. So objectively, like where in this situation was I either wrong or where did I say something disrespectful? Well, I mean, I guess you really, didn't. I just okay. So are we going on like you felt I did something but didn't, or did I actually like do something? Okay, I guess maybe I was exactly like, but because I didn't panic and actually like listen to them and then put out for them like, hey, so I hear that you're feeling this thing, but let's figure out where this feeling is coming from and then how that feeling got here. And then is that a thing that's actually a thing? And then let me give you my perspective of what was actually going on when I said or did a thing. So you'll be put at ease or whatever, but I'm not panicking. She can be panicking. I'm not panicking. And therefore the situation kind of goes like this, because again, I've learned how to talk to women. I'm pretty even keel. I don't mind talking about things, whether I'm at fault or not. And so I've been able to take things that women bring to me and bring them down to this level. So women's coming to you and being like, I can't believe you didn't understand what I said to X, Y, and Z. I would just be like, okay, but real talk, like I'm not in your head. How would I know? Well, I guess because I thought maybe you blah, blah, blah. Okay, but objectively, am I in your head? I mean, no, okay, so I care for you, right? I'm not here to try to purposely hurt your feelings. How would I know that? Like, these are the kind of conversations that you only get to practice when you're actually in relationships. But when you first start getting into relationships, having these kind of conversations is going to be unfamiliar. It's going to feel awkward and it's going to be annoying. But the more you have them, the better you get at them. And then the less of them you'll actually end up having. Okay. But this starts with, are you going to be willing to have those kind of conversations? And that is based on, are you able to be detached? Are you able to legitimately not care if this woman stays around? Every girl I'm with, that I've ever been with, I'm like, at the end of the day, if you stay, I'd love it. But if not, I'll find somebody else. That's been my mantra. It has worked out great for me. And it causes me less stress in the long run. Because you as a guy, think about it, dating is already a stressful proposition. You sticking with women that are going to bring a bunch of turmoil is not good. But you being so attached to those kind of women that you don't know how to like dispel their fears because you're thinking, but I got to get on board with what they're feeling. If I don't, then I'm going to lose them. You're causing harm to both of you in the long run.
He dried his face. I'm pleased to say after about 4 sessions now, he's doing so much better. He's really improving his self-concept and he's going to be just fine. I hope this story made sense. If it did, type church in the comments with 3 R's. And then remember, you've got 2 jobs. 1, be better today than what you were yesterday. And 2, don't forget what I told you.
So yeah, I thought that was a really great video. And hopefully between his insights and the stuff that I commentaried on, you guys get a better understanding of like, at the end of the day, you cannot be the one on this ship that also has these high voltage emotions and stuff, right? So this is why I try to stress being detached. And this is why I also stress that you as a guy, like you said in the video, you're not going to be able to understand everything. And that includes some of the reasons why women decide one day, oh, they don't want to be with you, or why you say something and all of a sudden she has a reaction that you didn't expect. You could try to figure out the ins and outs of why that is all day, or you could just say, this is the reaction she's having. Do I know how to handle that? Can we talk about it? And if not, is it worth moving on to somebody else? Now, these days, I'm a lot better at being able to just have conversations without getting overly emotional. I'm able to sit, I'm able to listen, but you may not have that skill set yet. You may be that guy that still, gets overly worried if you do one thing wrong, or you fly off the handle of a girl if you think that if you perceive her to be doing something you don't like. And that's where I come in, because I'm ideally able to talk you off the ledge and give you a better understanding of what's going on, where she's at, where you're at, why certain things are happening, but more importantly, how you build up to where you're not going to be so overly bothered by the ways in which women are reacting to you and your presence, even women that you're in relationships with, because again, that goes a long way. If you need help with that, you can check out my various coaching options at harrywilmington.com. So hopefully, guys, some of what I said today has helped you out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/harrywilmington. Also go to harrywilmington.com to get a free copy of my ebook, Texting Women Like a Boss, which is the very first step in being able to know the ins and outs of how attraction works and how texting women on the phone actually could benefit you to getting them if you do it in the right way. So check all that out at the website. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Harry Wilmington, and I will catch you guys on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Hey there, thanks for tuning in to Harry Dating Convos. Don't forget to visit harrywilmington.com to download my free ebook, Texting Women Like a Boss. And while you're there, if you're ready to take things to the next level with your dating life, check out the Get Girls Academy membership program for exclusive strategies and live coaching. Go to harrywilmington.com to learn more and join today. Lastly, if you've got a question you'd like answered on one of these shows, leave a comment below or write me at harrywilmington@gmail.com. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.